7. The true strength of champion teams isn't about possessing the ball, it's about winning it back. Now I'm going to tell you a statistic. I think this is the most misunderstood subject in modern football. After watching a match, what is the first thing most of us look at? The possession percentage. We had 68%. The opponent had 32%. Then we immediately make this comment. That means we were the better team. But elite analysis teams almost never look at this. There is a completely different number they pay attention to. How many seconds it takes you to win the ball back after losing it. Yes, the whole issue is that simple. Because in modern football, losing the ball is no longer a big problem. The real problem is how long you leave it to the opponent.
Just think about it.
The opponent wins the ball. If you give them 20 to 30 seconds to pass comfortably, they organize their defense. They catch their breath. They prepare their attacking plan. But if you win the ball back within 5 or 6 seconds, they can't do any of those things. This is exactly what the teams that win the World Cup achieve. They don't stop the moment they lose the ball. On the contrary, the real battle starts at that very moment. Scientists call this ball recovery time. In other words, the time it takes to win the ball back. And here's the interesting part. Most champion teams keep this time incredibly short. Sometimes just a few seconds. That's why the opposing team can't control the game, even though they have possession. Because they are under constant pressure. Maybe you've noticed it. When playing against some teams, the opponent never seems able to pass comfortably. They win the ball. One pass. A second pass. Before the third one, the pressure arrives. Then possession changes again. This is not a coincidence. It's a practiced habit. We see this especially in the most successful teams of recent years. The ball is lost. But nobody spreads their arms and looks at the referee. Nobody starts walking. Everyone focuses on a single goal at the same time, winning the ball back. And pay attention. I'm not saying apply pressure, because this isn't just about running toward the opponent. The real issue is the right player applying pressure at the right moment. The player next to him closes the passing lane. Another player provides cover behind. So in reality, it's not just one person applying the pressure. It's the entire team. In the world of science, two important concepts are used for this. Rest defense. In other words, the team doesn't lose its defensive balance even while attacking. And counterpress timing. In other words, starting the pressure at exactly the right second the ball is lost. That's why some teams continue to be dangerous even after losing possession. Because before the opponent can even lift their head, the ball changes possession again. This actually creates a psychological advantage as well.
Just think about it.
You keep winning the ball, but 5 seconds later, you lose it again. After a while, you stop taking risks. You play more safely. You play more slowly. And that's exactly what champion teams want. To leave the opponent without courage. What's interesting is that sometimes a team's best defense isn't defending at all. It's never allowing the opponent to have the ball comfortably. That's why, after some matches, we say, the opponent couldn't create anything. Maybe it's not because they couldn't create. Maybe it's because they never had the chance to create. And there's a very subtle detail here. A significant portion of the goals scored by teams that win the ball back quickly comes before the opponent's defense has had time to get organized. Because while the defenders are still preparing to move forward into attack, the ball suddenly ends up behind them. And that's exactly the most dangerous moment. So sometimes, what creates the goal isn't a brilliant pass. It's having won the ball back 6 seconds earlier. So far we've talked about the importance of age, possession, running distance, and winning the ball back. But the next characteristic is perhaps the biggest invisible battle in World Cup finals. Because penalties are shots taken not only by the foot, but by the brain as well. 8 penalties are won by the brain, not the feet. Now be honest. When a World Cup match goes to a penalty shootout, do you get a little nervous too, just like I do? We turn up the volume on the television. Nobody is talking. The ball is placed on the white spot. The goalkeeper is on the line. The player takes a deep breath. And those few seconds feel like minutes. Most people explain this moment only with technique. He struck it well. He struck it badly. The goalkeeper guessed the right corner. But sports psychologists don't agree. According to them, the biggest factor that determines a penalty isn't the foot. It's the brain. Because a penalty is actually less of a physical action and more of a mental decision made under intense pressure. There's an interesting study. The scoring rate of penalties taken by a losing team to equalize is significantly lower than that of normal penalties.
Why?
Because the player isn't just kicking the ball. At the same time, they're carrying the expectations of millions of people on their shoulders. When the human brain feels pressure, it can become unable to do even the things it normally does best. Maybe you've experienced this too. Something you normally do very easily suddenly becomes impossible when someone is watching you. A penalty is one of the most extreme examples of that. There are countless examples of this in World Cup history. Those who remember the 1994 final know. Roberto Baggio, perhaps the best footballer of his era. He steps up to the ball, and the ball flies over the crossbar. For years, people remembered it as the missed penalty. But what failed wasn't the technique. It was the ability to cope with the pressure of that moment. There's also the exact opposite example. The 2022 World Cup final. Argentina versus France. Gonzalo Montiel takes the last penalty. Just imagine if you score, your country will win the World Cup after 36 years. If you miss, everything starts all over again. It's hard even to imagine that kind of pressure. But the ball hits the back of the net. Because elite players don't just practice penalties. They also practice staying calm under pressure. That's why some coaches don't have their players take penalties only at the end of training. When the players are already tired, while their teammates are watching them, sometimes even crowd noise is played through the speakers. The goal isn't to practice shooting. It's to train the brain to handle that pressure. There's another interesting detail. Goalkeepers don't just guess the corner. They study the player's walk, their breathing, the position of their shoulders, where their eyes are looking. Some goalkeepers even move deliberately late, because they want the player to change their mind at the last second. So on the penalty spot, neither of the two people is really looking at the ball. Both of them are looking into each other's minds. And perhaps the most surprising point is this. Sometimes even referees, completely without realizing it, can be influenced by a player's body language. A footballer who looks confident, someone who moves with determination, can make others believe in the situation more. That's why some players win more fouls than their opponents for years. Because they don't just receive contact, they make the referee feel that contact more strongly. This is exactly what sports psychology studies. Football isn't just a game played with the feet. It's a giant laboratory showing how the human mind works under pressure. And the World Cup is the hardest exam in that laboratory. But here's the interesting part. Even being mentally strong isn't enough on its own for a team. Because nearly every team that wins the trophy has another characteristic that stands out. Documentaries always show us a single hero. But the truth is, in champion teams, the leader is never just one person. We have 2 more points to cover. This video is the continuation of episode 4 and the final episode. If you want more, and if you like this video, write in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe.